department and so on. So, and then below a point it comes to panchayats, but really panchayats don't have much control over that. It's really the minor irrigation departments. So what one can assume is that forget the panchayat raj and thereafter, which is really recent, very very recent in the history of this tax. It has still not had a strong impact. It is largely a Babu dam which has managed this or mismanaged these tax structures. Left it to ruin, largely allowed it for desilting, for siltation. Siltation is very easy here. You don't treat the watershed, and in one season, at best 2 seasons, the tanks are full. Such is the runoff in these regions. Uh, uh, and in cities particularly, and now I'm shifting away from the overall sense of it to the cities. The problem was that with the growth of cities like Bangalore, and what I'm speaking of, Bangalore can apply well to Hubli Dharwad or North Karnataka or Raichur. We have worked in many systems in the state, and it's the same story everywhere. Uh, what we have discovered is that emergency played a very strong role in the destruction of water bodies. And why is that so? Because during emergency, a variety of parastatal bodies emerged because of Indira Gandhi's strong belief in the executive and I would say no belief in the legislature. If somebody disagreed, you went. Whether you were a judge or a legislator, it didn't really matter. So our draconian sense of wielding state power resulted in the creation of a variety of parastatal bodies. And one of the worst which was evolved in the 70s is the Delhi Development Authority. And modeled on that very soon was the Karnataka's Bangalore Development Authority. And in the evolution of BDA and its legislation, it's a very poorly thought legislation. It was really perceived as an institution which would develop landscapes into housing sites, commercial and business enterprises, essentially, nothing else. Uh, what people conveniently forgot was that we had the Town and Country Planning Act, which to me is one of the most progressive legislations in post-independent India, largely uncelebrated by social action groups or environmental activists or anybody really, even researchers. Most people don't even know that that legislation exists. But we have used that very effectively and to full advantage, I would say. Because the Town and Country Planning Act, though it was modeled on the Victorian Town and Country Planning Act, in 1960 when somebody wrote it, whoever wrote it, they wrote it with the sense of participation which you find emerging in the Panchayat Raj system. The plan making process was highly attended to by public input. They did not have the third tier of governance because of Nehru's own limitation, I would say, of imagining how it should work, the country should work. But anyway, in 60s when that law was written, they ensured that plan making would take into consonance the idea of a community, the integration of community identity, the integration of community decisions into the overall plan of a city. Be it a small city or large city, it required that. So, for instance, if you open Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 of the Town and Country Planning Act and read every clause of that, or whatever came subsequently. Those of you who are not familiar with Bangalore and who have travelled through the bus stand, the city main bus stand, Majestic as we call it, opposite the railway station, may not be aware that that was the drinking water source for the old Bangalore. There was a tank called the Garmambati tank. And that was at least about 300 acres water spread. And in my childhood days, I have seen it full of water. And they drained half of it. Initially in the 70s, they claimed malaria as the reason. They would come and spray DDT inside your house and all over the city as well. Subsequently, they claimed that sewage had got contaminated. What they did not explain was why the sewage got there in the first place. These tanks were not meant to be sewage harvesting systems. They were meant to be rainwater, surface water harvesting systems. So by the very aspect of city engineering, city planning and so on, the sewage system should have gone underground. Right? Bangalore got its underground sewage systems in the 40s or 50s. I don't quite remember it. But again, that's another thing which you must recognize. It fundamentally transforms the way cities work. The minute you put underground drainage systems and allow water to be stored or pumped, cities rise. They become taller. You see. If you can't pump water up, then cities have to be 1+1 at best. Beyond that, you really don't have much energy. So electricity transforms many things. So you can see cities rise as electricity becomes abundant or cheaply available. Water can be lifted up. toilets can be put 3rd, 4th, 50th floor. So what happens below the ground? You need to have water engineering systems, wastewater engineering systems, which will process that. But across Bangalore, all the wastewater engineering systems are built for 1+1. Really. It's not even meant for 3+4, 3 or 4, 5-story buildings. So when you change the floor area ratio, which happened in the mid-90s, and allowed very large multi-storage complexes to come up, that wastewater has to go somewhere, right? So what happens? The pipelines got ruptured. When those pipelines got ruptured, the logical answer to that is that wastewater cannot be held back. It stinks, it contaminates, it pollutes. And like we had it, the water pipelines would run alongside the wastewater pipelines, okay? The drinking water source. And considering that we import water, I call it import water, from 100 kilometers away, over 500 feet, altitude. Most of the money which comes in, I think Vishwanath can correct me, I don't know the numbers, but most of the money that is revenue is really going for paying the electricity bill of the water supply board. So there is really not much left. So considering also that the water supply board is also the sewerage supply board or sewerage treatment board, they had never found money to treat the sewage systems. So the city grew without any sewage treatment systems. And all the wastewater was diverted into the stormwater drains, into the Raja Kaluways. If you just went up, you will find a canal full of sewage. Okay, that used to be a beautiful wetland. Okay, and from here there was another beautiful wetland which even just about 10 years ago I have seen it, before this old bridge came. Connects to the next tank, which is the Nagavara tank, which is a huge, equally large water body. And that was full of, on either side were paddies and really a natural drainage point for rainwater. If it gets full, water overflows, go to the next tank, and there, so on and so forth. Now these Raja Kaluways became canals for sewage and got contaminated. And since they were poorly maintained, most of them are not concrete lined for a long time, it started seeping into the underground systems and contaminated well water. So what we started attacking was really water security. So wells which were functional across Bangalore have become dysfunctional simply because wells have become contaminated. See, it's very easy for bacteria to stay in underground for a very long time. Right? It doesn't take much for it to survive. And